we will be recorded. And then most importantly, do not let your perceived ability to draw prevent you from taking part. So it is an absolute fact, and I'm here to convince you today, you do not have to be able to draw to be a visual thinker. So first of all, a little bit about me and why I put this talk together. So as Charlie kindly announced, I am an Agile coach, and I'm interested to find out a little bit about you. So if you are on the mural, let me know what Agile roles are in the room. And if you are not on the mural, then do just pop that information into the chat. So if you're using the mural, all you have to do is double tap and you should be able to create a little sticky. So I've been an Agile coach for the last few years, probably about 4 or 5 years, and then a Scrum Master before that. Before that, I was also in software testing, and I also did a little bit of sysadmin for my sins. So I've kind of been through, and also probably the secret I should share is at one point I was actually an IT project manager. So as you can see, I've kind of had a wiggly career through the IT world, and that has kind of taken me into Agile. The other thing that I'm like really big on, as you can probably tell if you've seen anything that I've done on LinkedIn, and just by the very fact that I'm running today, is that I love to doodle. And what I started to notice as I kind of got into my doodling is that actually Agile and doodling seem to go together really well. And you kind of have started to see more and more visual thinking being applied to Agile. So what I wasn't sure about is why. And so that was the question that led me to create this workshop for you today. So yeah, it's really important. On this Agile slide with all question marks, please do put all your roles, because we're going to come back to this in a little bit. So yeah, just double click on the mural there and pop your role, whatever it may be. Right. So
I'm just going to say or reiterate, we cannot edit the mural with the link.
I see. Not with the magic link. Okay, no worries. So yeah, we've got Agile Coach, Business Coach, Scrum Master.
Gemma?
Yeah, excellent. So a lot of different. I'm just noticing that in the in the chat. Some coaches. Brilliant stuff. So yeah, and a developer turned Scrum Master. So yeah, all really, yeah, all like loads of different Agile roles in the room. So first of all, what is visual thinking? Now, any ideas, and I'm going to kind of put it out to the room now, what do you believe visual thinking to be? If you've got access to the mural, like I say, pop it on there. If not, do put it in the chat. I've got the chat open, so I can see your messages here too. So yeah, it's a way to communicate ideas, represent ideas and concepts. Absolutely, it is an amazing skill. It's putting words into pictures. Interesting. Using visual illustrations to communicate thought. Yeah, so visual thinking is it's actually quite similar as a concept to Agile. So visual thinking actually has three different areas. We've got the first one, which is how I got into visual thinking, which is the sketchnoting. So sketchnoting is when you're listening to, say, a talk or a presentation, or even reading a book, and you are just taking down visual notes of what the content of the talk is. The next one is, so you're mostly just doing that one for yourself. The next one is when you kind of start to open that up for other people. And that's what's called graphic recording. And you sometimes see that at conferences where there's a conference speaker and somebody is recording a visual of what is being said in that talk. And it's kind of being played back for everybody to take a look at. And then the final one is visual facilitation. And visual facilitation is if any of you have either been to a retrospective or held a retrospective, you may have come across the idea of, like, say, the sailboat retrospective. So it's a picture that gives you a metaphor, and then you actually start to you actually get everybody to kind of contribute into that picture, playing off the metaphor, and you use that as a facilitation tool. So those are kind of like the three areas that kind of all sit under the umbrella of visual thinking. And you're absolutely right. It's about taking something that's said, or something that, or a set of ideas that are maybe in a book, or a set of ideas that are within a room, and creating some kind of visual recording of those things. So yeah, it's a brilliant way to communicate ideas to others. Right, so the question still is, well, what has Agile got to do with it? And so we start off just by looking at what is Agile. So if we start off with the Agile manifesto, we're kind of agreeing, we think it's people and interaction over process and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract and negotiation, and adapting to change over following a plan. Now, during this workshop, we're going to work out like how any of the things that we've kind of just been describing there, which is how we take ideas and create visuals with them, or encourage other people to create visuals with them, helps us do any of these things. So that is really, that's essentially what we're kind of covering in today's workshop. So, first of all, we've got to start with any guesses on what this is? It's a brain. It's the brain, thank you. Yeah, so we're going to start with some brain science. So there's been quite a lot of science in terms of understanding a little bit more about how visuals work on our brain. So first of all, if I was just one of the studies it has been that if you just say like a list of things to people, and so it just hits their ears. So there's like an ear, and we've got a list that's being spoken at somebody. When scientists then test people on that list a week later, those people have only got around they'll only be able to recall around 10% of the things that were on that list. We can then make those things visual. So we can, for example, do a circle, a square, a mug, and that recall, when tested a week later, goes up, and it goes up by quite a lot. So it goes up to between 60 and 65% recall. But what's really interesting is if you then combine a visual, say a circle, and the word circle, the recall of that goes up to between 90 to 95% ability to recall the list a week later. So it's actually a really marked difference. And that's because actually we're engaging two hemispheres of our brain. So we're engaging bits which are concerned with the language, and bits which are also concerned with the visual. And because of that, as long as those words fit together to create additional meaning, we're way, way more likely to be able to remember that. So one of the really powerful reasons to use visual thinking is because of recall. One of the other very powerful reasons is why scientists know to use visual thinking is because they've studied the brain through the MRI scanner, and they can see that actually when we know that like 90% of the information that goes into our brain is visual for a start, it's also we're able to process that information 60,000 times faster than if it was a word, or whether it was some auditory information. But also we know that when this bit here lights up, and this is a very scientific diagram, when we get the visual bit lighting up, it also has this sense of an emotional resonance. And so they've done MRI scans which show that when you're seeing something, there's meaning that is actually getting made from it, and then that emotional meaning kind of gives extra resonance to that. So again, that helps again with recall, because things that are important to us, we're more likely to remember. Gemma, is your drawing? It's not appearing on the screen like the earlier drawing did. Oh, okay. Is everybody seeing the?
I can see it clearly.
Okay, that's fantastic. I was just a bit worried. I think Shaz.
I can't see anything apart from the 10%, the ear, and the speech bubble. I don't know if anyone else can.
I think potentially you're like you've frozen. That might be why. So yeah, maybe you could try just dropping out and dropping back in again if you're not able to refresh.
That's fine. That's me.
Okay, I hope that helps. Okay, so that's brilliant. So yeah, so we're not only able to recall stuff faster, but also when we have that visual, because it's more meaningful, it also helps us to focus. And this is really, I think, important, especially, and this isn't a neurodiversity talk, but it is especially important for people with neurodiversity, because actually it helps us to be able to focus on what is being said, because you've got more senses involved. So we've got recall, we've got processing, it helps us to process, and then we've also got focus. Okay. So what is it about putting an image and a word together? Now that is something that is very specific, and scientists call it dual coding. So dual coding is literally just an image, so that's going in one channel in your brain, and then a word which is going in another channel in your brain. And I'm just going to use this as an illustration to show to you how this works. So for example, we've just got an image here of a mug, but I can change the meaning of that by adding text to it. So for example, I might just add the words coffee. And hopefully you may have, that meaning of that is kind of changing for you. So any kind of thoughts on how you're kind of feeling as a result of seeing, say, the word coffee attached to that now? Do feel free just to warmth, energizing. However, if I change the text and put the words cocoa. Does that change the meaning for you? Annoyed, I wanted tea, yeah. Does that change the feeling behind that? Cozy, yeah. Absolutely. It's got a completely, for me, it's got a completely different resonance to the idea of having coffee in it. Coffee in it's quite energetic, cocoa in it is quite warming, it's quite cozy, it's quite relaxing. And so you can actually, just by having a very simple image and putting a meaningful word into it, you're not only changing the kind of logical meaning behind what you're seeing, but you're also adding this kind of emotional layer to it as well. Now, I'm going to show you that actually you could also, just for example, add the word hot, for example. And just the word hot, again, it kind of makes it more of a kind of cautionary thing, like, oh no, the liquid's going to be hot. I'm not feeling like warm and cozy about this at all. And it's not feeling particularly Christmassy. However, we don't even need that sophisticated of a picture to be able to communicate something like that. We can, in fact, just have literally here, we've got the word hot, and all I've done is added a little bit of colour and just some wiggly lines. And again, so that is dual coding. It doesn't have to be a sophisticated picture. In fact, it's just some wiggly lines, but the wiggly lines are infused with meaning. And that is a very simple example of how actually you can put together quite powerful images of dual coding. So we're now going to, I'm kind of taking you through the basics. I'm going to get you to start doing some dual coding for yourself. And so we are going to have a look at, first of all, how to use lettering to do dual coding. So here we've got all different types of lettering that we can use. We can use caps, lowercase, really kind of tall letters, some tiny letters, letters with punctuation, and some joined up letters. So what I want you to do is in the chat or on the mural, depending on how you can interact, let me know what types of lettering you would use to communicate what types of idea. Yeah, caps, excitement, definitely. It's high energy. Capital letters when I'm hungry or angry or hangry. Yes, Frankie, thank you. Tiny letters get focus. Yeah, it's almost like you're whispering to your audience and you kind of are asking them to lean in and listen closer. Italic for instructions. Yeah, italic can go, yeah, maybe kind of come across with like a sense of authority. Lowercase for details. Absolutely. What kind of emotions can you communicate with lettering? Uppercase for loud ideas, absolutely. Yeah, tiny, I think it conveys shyness, definitely. Softness for lowercase and italics, yeah, absolutely. Joined up for personal messages, I like that. Joined up for love, yeah, actually, if you think about like Valentine's Day cards, absolutely, yeah, they absolutely use joined up italic-y writing to communicate love. So yeah, here you can see just by not even using caps for anger, yeah, absolutely. You can see that not even by using a fancy font, but just the way that you're writing your lettering, you can actually start to communicate emotion. And that is the beginning building block of your dual coding and first dual coding exercise. The second bit that you're going to need for your dual coding exercise are what are known as seed shapes. So these are the basic shapes that you can essentially, it's like an alphabet, you can almost create anything with. It's a circle, a rectangle, or circle or an oval, doesn't really have to be, it doesn't have to be anything particular, a rectangle, triangle, a cloud shape, lots of different kind of line shapes, which can either be used like a wavy line like I used for hot, or they can also be used as a connector, and a starburst shape. So again, on the mural or in the chat, what kind of emotions or situations or ideas could you convey using just these types of shapes? And get the ideas flowing. And yeah, visitors definitely do like add your thoughts on the post-it notes to the mural, but anybody else, yeah, do just pop them into the chat. Stars, take important note of this. Yeah, thoughts in the cloud shape. Yeah, spot on, Sim. It's perfect for putting thoughts into. Triangle, caution. Yes, agreed. Spiky star, half price. Yeah, it's like an, I love it. It's called starburst. It's like an exclamation. It's like a pow. It's kind of, yeah, it's just hitting you. So yeah, circle for moving things. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, a circle can convey a kind of completion. Symbols for swearing, I love it, yes. And arrows for connecting ideas. Angela, yeah, you are spot on. Yeah, this action that causes this, connecting thoughts and ideas, absolutely. Yeah, a circle to make a point, like I want to make a point out of that point, I'm going to put a circle around it. So I think that's, yeah, that's brilliant. And somebody has kindly, thank you, put pow into the shape. Right, I've now given you everything that you need to write your first dual coded image. So I am now going to ask you to get your pens and paper ready because it is time. Anybody who has a name starting between A and G, I want you to write the words excited shriek in and choose the font that you need, the right font or the right kind of lettering style that you need to use, and use the right shape to write the word excited shriek. And when I say the right, I don't mean the right one. Use whichever one you want, but whichever one you want that conveys the words excited shriek best. Anybody whose name begins with H to M, I want you to write the words gentle whisper. And I want you to, again, use the style, use the type of lettering and the shapes that we've given there to convey that. And then anybody who is writing, anybody whose name begins between N and Z, I want you to give us a bit flat. And I want you to write that again, choose the lettering, choose the shapes that are appropriate. I'm going to give you just 2 minutes to do this exercise. On proper paper, on actual proper paper, yeah. So yeah, you've just got a couple of minutes to write those. And then in a minute, this is where we are going to start turning our cameras on because I'm going to ask you to share that. Okay. It's the last minute. And for this bit, I'm just going to stop the sharing because this is always really nice to be able to see everybody's screens. So hopefully we'll get a nice visual. from everybody on this one. Everybody feeling ready? So everybody with their names beginning with A, between A and G, I want you to hold up your excited shriek. Also unmute yourself, and I want you to show your excited shriek and say excited shriek at the same time. So 3, 2, 1, excited shriek.
Excited shriek.
That is fantastic. Yeah, so we can see a couple of starbursts there. Angela, I love your starburst. Gareth, brilliant starburst. Jude, yeah, you've got yourself a brilliant starburst, and some lines and colour as well. I've noticed some people with a brilliant use of colour there as well. So absolutely fantastic. Also seeing a lot of capital lettering, so amazing stuff. Right, it is now time for gentle whisper. So gentle whispers, please unmute yourself and present your gentle whispers. Thank you.
Gentle whisper.
Thank you, Joelle. Thank you. Oh, that is lovely. Yeah. So we are starting to see some lovely joined up writing, some very dotted lines instead of a speech bubble. I noticed, I think it might have been Matt's that kind of suggested that the words were being whispered. Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, and Lorenzo, yeah, really nice with a really kind of gentle squiggly line just to kind of emphasize the gentleness. That's fantastic. Thank you. And now finally, last but not least, a bit flat. Please go ahead with your unmute yourself and present your bit flats.
A bit flat.
Thank you, Robin. That is brilliant. Oh, thank you, Sim. Yeah, with the wavy line, like I'm just floating above the water. Yeah. I love it. A bit flat. Oh, wow. The letters on Shaz's actually get progressively smaller. I love that. And that's the first time I think I've seen that. So yeah, fantastic. Brilliant work. Right. So question for you now. What I want you to reflect on is what have you learned? So what have you learned? How could you use that? And what did you notice about that practice? Again, if you are on the mural, please do just put your post-its onto the mural. But if you're not, no worries. I've got you in the chat. It's engaging. Yeah, thank you, Sue. It is an engaging way to communicate. People have fun. Yeah, good. Yeah, how powerful the sizing an image can be to convey different things. It's almost like you can use, you're giving yourself access to more tones. Like you'll see with me when I'm talking, sometimes I'll talk quietly and seriously. Other times I can't talk loud and big, but actually you give yourself an even greater range when you start to use those visuals. Yeah, we had a shared meaning instantly. Yes, and it adds meaning and emotion to the visuals. Yeah, and without necessarily needing to be able to draw. And I would say that is one of the real key things that I hope you've learned is you can do all of that without necessarily having to have been like a brilliant artist. So well done, everybody. You're already well on your way to being visual thinkers. And you've totally, I think, nailed the basics. So what were those basics? I'm hoping to be able to show you. Should this... Okay. So I'm just going to go back to sharing my screen with you. So just give me a moment to do that. No, it's saying it doesn't want to. Ah, there we go. Lovely. So now we've got those. Now we've got those basics done. I think something's going on. Okay. The image actually underneath this seems to have been deleted, so never mind. So I'll just have to tell you what it is. So basically, now you have got the ability to use some very simple shapes to listen and communicate using those simple shapes. So now we're going to build that into a listening exercise where I'm only going to ask you to take those shapes, and I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. I'm going to ask you to take it in turns. You're going to be in pairs. One of you is going to talk about a concept that you've read or learnt, or you can talk about an organisation that you've worked for. And you're just going to do that for 4 minutes. The other person listens and just using simple shapes and words, sort of like we've just done in the kind of dual coding way, but you're going to be able to use a few more of them. You don't have to just use one. You can use a few more. You're going to listen to that 4 minutes of talking, and you're going to start to turn that into a visual with some words against it. And then after 4 minutes, you are going to swap. So you'll show it to the person quickly and go, oh, look, listen to that. And then you're going to swap over. And the other person is then going to talk about a concept that they've read or learned, or an organisation that they've worked in. And then the other person is going to listen very carefully. Don't go straight into doodling. Start listening a little bit first and turn that into a picture. Now, bear in mind, I have lost one of my slides. I just want to make sure that makes sense to everybody. Is everybody actually cool with what we're going to be doing here? And it's absolutely fine, and it will totally be my responsibility if you need something clarifying. Okay, it sounds good, brilliant. So I'm going to create the breakout rooms now. If anybody discovers that they are in a breakout room where there actually isn't anybody else present, or that person is off camera and not contributing anything, do come back. You can come back into the main room and I can assign you to another room. So I'm going to create those now, and you should just automatically go into those rooms. You've got 4 minutes each, so just be aware of that timer. Cool, lovely stuff. I'll let Juice get in first, and then we'll send everybody to rooms. Good luck. Hey, Juice. I've just seen you join. Was there nobody in the room with you?
Hi, Gemma. I'm on my work laptop and we're not allowed to use the installed version of Zoom. So I'm having so many technical issues, so I'm going to leave it here because it's not workable for me. So wish you all the best.
Sorry. Thank you, Juice. Yeah, thank you very much. See you soon.
I have one tip for you. Check out Miro. A lot of the things you cannot do in Mural, you can do in Miro, which I saw which you could need. So that would be a suggestion.
Thank you, Juice, actually. Yeah, I did used to run this one in Miro, and it's just because I haven't used Miro in such a long time that I decided not to, but now I'm really regretting it. So yeah, thank you. It is.
Okay. I converted from one to the other, and I think Miro is better suited for this. But wish you all the best. But I'm going to leave you because this is not working for me. I'm flipping in and out, and I cannot hear everything and see everything, so sorry.
I'm sorry to hear. Thank you, Juiced. Take care.
Yes, bye-bye.
Hi, Martin. Was there nobody in your room?
Hi, Gemma. There was somebody, but he didn't unmute nor turned on his camera and then left. I don't know.
Okay. I will, if you like, I will see whether I can move you to a different room. Would that
Yeah,
be
but maybe
okay?
if you want, you can also wait. Maybe somebody else is also moving back to the main session. I'm happy to wait. Let's see.
Okay,
But
yeah, that's fine. I think I could move you into room 4 because that one, it's really strange. Some people have got too many people in already. But that one, oh no, well, room 6 has got Jude in. So yeah, let me move you into that one there. And hopefully you'll be about halfway through that exercise. It's lovely to see you.
lovely to see you.
I'll just move you now. Does that work? Welcome back. And I know some of you were in rooms of 3 because we had some uneven numbers. So I hope you managed to figure out what to do in that situation. And you maybe did a smaller time box. How did you find it? Anybody got anything that they wanted to share just from that? Because sometimes there's some really interesting things that have kind of happened in the rooms.
I found it quite fun. It was quite a fun experience.
Thank you, Gareth. Yeah. Oh, this is really powerful. What did you find powerful about it?
Actually, what's interesting is that if I didn't know the topic, I could focus on the drawing, and that's all I did, listened and drew. If I knew the topic, so if it was something around coaching Agile, I kind of was drawing, but also trying to think about a solution. I went into coach mode. So that was quite interesting.
Really interesting. Yeah.
Mm.
Ben's always, a couple of people in the chat saying that they found it easier to listen whilst doodling. Yeah, absolutely true for me. I find it easier to listen because it kind of forces that focus, doesn't it? Oh, Frankie, you've got an observation there. Made a mistake?
Yes, I heard the right thing, but I wrote the wrong thing. Like in terms of time, I wrote 4 p.m. instead of 4 a.m., which was the whole point of the story, really. And we spotted that, and we corrected that, and we changed the played with the font size to say no, that's not 4 p.m. It's a.m. Much bigger.
That's yeah, absolutely. So you're actually able to give some playback to the person and so they can say, oh, that's not actually what I meant. That's brilliant.
Yeah, and that's something even I realized it made it easier to listen if you are like visualizing what the other person is talking about, and it was easier to recall the whole story as well.
Thank you, Premi. I think I've noticed that as well. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with like Dan Vacanti's actionable agile metrics for predictability. So I tried listening to his talk on that probably, I don't know, it felt like 3 or 4 times, and I just couldn't get anywhere with that. I genuinely just didn't understand what he was on about. And it was only when I started my sketchnoting practice and I went back to it and I listened and drew what I understood, the act of turning it into a visual actually helped me to understand what it was that was being said in a much clearer way. So I don't know if any of you kind of had any kind of similar experience around that.
You've just made me realise that as much as I'm struggling trying to start up journaling, I think it might be easier for me to start up sketching.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's that is actually one of the courses that I've run in previously is called Doodling for Feelings, especially if you're finding that words aren't quite hitting the right spot. Sometimes images can kind of unlock meaning, and we're not going to cover that today. But it definitely, that is very, very powerful. And if you also try using your non-dominant hand for drawing and see what emerges, I would highly recommend that because it won't be what you're expecting and it'll be quite meaningful. Well, Jude, you've got, my husband always draws me a diagram when he can see me switching off from his explanation. Yeah. That's brilliant. What was different about seeing your words back as a doodle? So did anybody see what they'd said back as a doodle?
Sorry, Gemma, what was the question?
So did anybody see their words back as a doodle? So did anybody get to see what had been doodled for them?
Yes. So
Jazz, for me, when I was describing where I work and the journey I'm going through in terms of transformation and the barriers that we're facing, he drew a caterpillar, and then which transcended into a butterfly, which showed the journey that you're going on. Often it's quite a scary world, but actually, and it looks quite a big task that we need to do, but actually it's quite small and effective. So I quite like that.
Yeah. How was that, seeing that interpreted that way?
Yeah, it makes it more like manageable, and understand that it's actually a beautiful journey that you go through, and it's just really bumpy, but when you see the end result, when you start to see little changes, you know, you're doing the right thing, you're on the right track, and it will blossom, I think, eventually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think if it can create narrative around what can feel like a fairly, like, if you're in an overwhelming situation, and that is quite a useful thing. Brilliant. And somebody else, I think Jamie, saying impressive to see someone else's take on your story. Yeah, absolutely. It was, I think, when I first did this exercise, because I tested this with my friend Kerry, and she decided to explain something very complicated to me, and my Doodle showed her where she had gaps in her explanation. So she was like, oh, that's actually really interesting, because it shows, like, actually where I'm explaining things, where the picture isn't actually clear enough. So it can also kind of present some insight into the other person's thinking, or that they can then read that insight from that thinking. So you're now opening up into understanding and actually feeling what it is like to use visual thinking. So we're back, all the way back to the manifesto: people and interactions over process and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and adapting to change over following a plan. So what I want you to think about is, in what way will the skills that you've just heard, could they help in to help us explore any of these principles from the manifesto? And again, do put it in the chat, or if you are on Mural, just put your post-it notes next to, say, if it's something about people and interactions that you wanted to say, actually, I think this skill might help this. Just put your post-it note down in that area, and that's yeah, you can do that like that. But if not, pop them into the chat. Interactive, everyone gets involved. Yeah, and that is so important around that kind of people and interactions. How can you make it easier for people to interact with each other? This would be a key way of doing it. Anybody have any thoughts about how it might help customer collaboration? Yeah, George, even shy people can participate, more opinions are heard. Yeah, absolutely. It creates space for everybody, right? James, not putting one or two views on others. Yeah, they can make a different story from that picture, reduces bias. Well, that's a very interesting point. And Jamie, did you want to say any more about that thought around it, reducing bias?
That was just essentially that with the pictures, a picture tells 1,000 stories. Somebody else can make whatever meaning they want to. So as a trainer or as a coach, you're not necessarily putting your own bias on their thinking.
Yeah,
it helps with creative thinking maybe, and opening up different ideas.
Definitely. Yeah. Just by using like a visual thinking tool, you're engaging different parts of the brain, and so as a result, people are likely to start thinking about it differently. Customer collaboration, here we've got, like, instead of using big bang contracting, small incremental alignments supported by visuals. Oh, interesting. Does anyone want to talk more on that one?
Well, I have been involved in this big bang contracting, which takes forever and still end up a lot of misunderstanding and assumptions. And when you do this maybe in 1 month statement of works, but while you're talking about it, you use a whiteboard or so to make a flow and visualize it. It engages people more into different, I don't know, agreements or specifications or whatever little steps we need to take. So I think it helps a lot in getting alignment in a different way.
It does, yeah. I like that, Martin. I do. I also think it can help you break something down, especially if you are creating some kind of a visual narrative around that as well. So that's brilliant. Thank you. Somebody, Joelle, saying it could be used as an online friendly substitute for Lego Serious Play. Yes, definitely. I think you can, exactly that. You can kind of create images, and if you think about the seed shapes almost like blocks, and then you can ask some interesting and clean questions around the images that people are kind of presenting. So I love that. And using common symbology over a period of change can be familiar and quicken people's understanding of certain concepts. Joelle, I really like your points here. Did you want to speak any more on that?
I guess it just came to mind, like if you start people on a journey and you start using some diagrams, and then you expand on those diagrams over time, they can start to see how what they're, like we're talking about in one area, kind of connects with other things.
This I love, because it's about creating a key and mapping, and that key then means that you've got a shared understanding, and that mapping helps people to navigate. So again, how might we use that to, say, adapting to change over following a plan?
So I'm just starting, like, entry, I guess, systems entry into figuring out what we could do, and starting to just use a Miro board to sketch out what people are talking about, or at least live with people, and then we create a diagram. It might not be perfect, it never will be, but at least we start with that diagram, and then I take that diagram to other people and then see, their perspectives on the same diagram, and build upon that. So I've kind of used it in a Miro sense, but it's still a visual kind of, manifestation of hopefully a conversation that people are having and not quite previously been able to articulate.
That's it, I think, and in that sense, especially if you're using it to kind of collect like visuals around what other people are telling you, that's you may capture patterns as well, and that visual helps people to kind of understand and spot those patterns, and I think that's where it links really nicely into systems thinking. So that's fantastic, brilliant. We've got a note here, as the story was going, the picture was evolving and it felt okay. Does anyone want to talk more on that one?
That was me, Gemma. I didn't know where the story was going, and I just started drawing something here and then there, and it felt quite natural, not to have to create a big, long story where everything is exactly interconnected, but capturing thoughts, and somehow the picture came together organically, without having to have a big plan before.
I really like that, Frankie. And yeah, and sometimes actually it is psychologically easier to adapt to change when you feel like you've got visibility of that bigger picture. And so images actually can help you to orientate yourself. So even in very simple ways, like in a meeting room, having a visual agenda can help you orientate where you are in this meeting. And say, even here, you can see how much of the journey we've been on and how much of the journey we've got left as part of this meeting. So it's, it's understanding that, but if you think of that in a change context, how much security that would give you to understand actually it's part of a narrative, it's part of a bigger narrative. So yeah, I love that. Such a good point, Frankie. Lovely. And visuals can overcome cultural barriers. Yeah, absolutely, which I think helps us kind of get closer to that customer collaboration. Working software over comprehensive documentation. We've got note, person could see immediately result of my scribing work. Did anyone want to talk more to that one?
I could, but I don't want to take over the talking time.
So yeah, it is a really good way of just getting some like quick working understanding. So one of my favorite teams that I've worked in would do some, like they called it guerrilla UX testing. And so they would just go out with a pad and paper and just say, does this make more sense or this make more sense, to random people kind of who were walking around on the street. So they were just producing very, very simple wireframes using pads and paper and then just scribbling over the top of them. And as a result, that person could say and see exactly what needed to happen. And we were able to get some really quick UX feedback before then building that into a software build and then going back for customer feedback once we'd actually got that. So yeah, that was again, you can use the power of visual thinking through stuff like that as well. So it doesn't have to be like horrifically complicated or flashy documentation. You can just use very simple things, and as long as people kind of know what it is that you're sort of as long as you're kind of maybe using words in the right place and you're kind of guiding people through that, that's absolutely fine, and that kind of gives you just enough to kind of get on and go further. So those, I think we're starting to see that the skills are definitely able to kind of help us in terms of how we can kind of use things in an agile way. I just wanted to say, like, so obviously I've just shown you like the seed shapes. However, if you did want to go to the kind of next level, more complex, there are common symbols that you're going to use over and over again. And there's probably about 40 different symbols that once you know them, you can use them in a variety of ways. So if you think about how I like use the cup at the beginning, and I could totally use that for a cup, but also I could use that to mean coffee break, or I could use that to mean warm, or I could use that in a variety of different ways. I can use my book symbol to mean learning or writing or reading, or education. So again, depending on what words that I pair my symbol with, the more different types of meaning it could have. So for example, your diamond could literally be a diamond. However, it could also mean something like a value or preciousness. And so just having probably around 40 of these symbols in your visual library, you're then, and pairing those with words, you're then able to actually build up a pretty decent what we call like a visual library, but think of it as a vocabulary, like a number of words that you can use visually. And once you've got those symbols down, you can use them over and over and over again. And the more that you practice them, the better that you get at them. And so I like to say, I'm not particularly artistic, I'm not particularly good at drawing, but because I've got a few symbols that I know how to do, and I just regularly use them, that's enough for me to be able to do graphic recording or sketchnoting or visual facilitation. And I can kind of, and I can confidently use that library. And my favorite story is that one of my previous students believed that she couldn't draw at all, like not at all. And she was brave enough to go on my course because she was a transactional analysis coach, and she wanted to like really look at that limiting belief, like I cannot draw. And she drew every single illustration for her dissertation, her transactional analysis dissertation. And some of them are so like moving that her supervisor was like reduced to tears. And I'm so proud of that, because of that emotional resonance. And now, because she has developed her visual library, despite the fact that she thought she was not able to draw, she actually teaches visual thinking for transactional analysis. So I just like to say anybody can learn these skills, even if they don't necessarily think that they can draw. Joelle here, okay. Robin says, combining visual and text enables you to communicate with different mindsets, visual thinkers and detailed thinkers. Yeah, thank you for that one, Robin. Yeah, so that's brilliant. And then just a few small tricks in terms of how to kind of polish up your colour and your shadows will also just really help you be able to kind of present the kind of pictures that you're doing well. So, of course, all of this I do teach on the course. So if you're interested in the Visual Thinking for Coaches course, we do have that Visual 15 discount code today. And you'll be able to understand on that course, we cover actually how to use these different things in different coaching contexts. So using it for things like mapping, using it for things like doing visual recording, using it for visual facilitation so that you can actually open up and create more inclusive workshop spaces, but also be able to do it to a good standard so that it feels and looks professional. So anyway, now we are back at the very beginning. So at the beginning, everybody kind of had different roles that they were kind of coming from. Some people were developers, we have agile coaches, IT project managers, scrum masters, so a lot of different roles in the room. I would like you to think about, and just put it in the chat or put it on the mural board here, as a result of what you've learned today, how could your role or any of the other roles use visual thinking to help them do their job better? Yeah, inspire people creatively, simplify and imagine a transformation journey. Thank you, Ben. Yeah, help work with leadership on behaviours and impacts. Yes, I'm excited about that, Sim. Shaz, better articulate unmet needs. Yeah. Shaz, did you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, I think quite often in organizations, everybody needs something because someone's asking them for it, or they need a certain outcome. And if you get a project manager asking you, when you're going to finish, when you're going to get done, can you give me a date for 2 years in the future? And there's a reason for that, because that person needs to satisfy someone else, or they've been measured in a certain way.
Yeah.
So being able to articulate that, and I think that will help create a bit more empathy and alignment and understanding that why is this person's not really here to make it more difficult. It's just they've got a need that's not been met.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I really like that, and I like the fact that you're kind of you're thinking about the empathy part of and the emotional role that visual thinking plays. Retrospective icebreaker, yeah, absolutely. Getting everybody drawing for their retrospective as an icebreaker is fantastic, because it starts then engaging the creative parts of people's brains, and you start getting people thinking differently. So thank you for that, Lorenzo. George has put process mapping. I'm going to go like one further than process mapping, George. I'm like thinking like journey mapping. So like and it's a bit of a kind of service design toolkit, but looking at actually the emotional journey and making that into a visual that people go through when they're engaging with our services, being able to play that back to the business. Super powerful. It is powerful as process mapping, but it's even more powerful when you kind of add that emotional like aspect to it, because again you're just engaging like the different parts of people's brains. Gareth saying graphic recording during meetings to help engage the group in focused discussion, aligning and confirming understanding. Hell yes, Gareth. Yep. Gareth, did you want to speak any more on that one?
I tried to do this a number of years ago. I wouldn't say it was unsuccessful, but it was less successful than I wanted it to be, because I didn't have the toolbox of vocabulary items at my ready disposal. So I wasn't able to record everything that was being said, but it did have an impact. I did notice the quality of the sessions was a little bit better, and we had something to take away as notes afterwards, just the pictures of the board.
Yeah, this is like one of the favorite jobs that I get, is requests to do graphic recording for people's coaching sessions or people's meetings, especially for group coaching or team coaching sessions. Getting that graphic recording and doing that playback into the room provides so much clarity, and people feel so heard. But it also, things I think that maybe didn't make sense when they were kind of in the room and everybody was contributing and they're kind of in the chaos, make more sense when you kind of present it as that bigger picture. So yeah, absolutely, Gareth. And I think it is really just about developing that visual library, so that it's much more kind of intuitive and easier for you when you're listening to be able to come turn that into a series of images. So yeah, thank you. Ooh, brilliant. On top of that, maybe I can get the symbols drawn by the community in a mini competition. Joelle, are you thinking about crowdsourcing your symbols?
Yes, potentially.
I'm really liking this, Joelle, and I might borrow that idea. Thank you. I love the idea of getting a team tattoo. Oh, you did Sim did an exercise to create a team tattoo. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so it's actually one of the exercises from the School of Life. They've got a collaboration deck. There's about 52 cards. So one of them, all my teams were remote, based everywhere. So one retro, let's create our team tattoo. Who are we? What makes us who we are? What do we value? What's important? Didn't have to be work specific, but they did go down that route. And you literally had the strangest icons that, you know, the cat dog cartoon, and then the symbol of what we're doing in our squad. Why was that important? And the world, because we're based everywhere. Like, they just put lots of ideas together to create this tattoo, which has become an emoji now in Slack that they use, which is quite sweet, for things that when they're celebrating, when things are going well. So it was quite a powerful experience. So yeah, definitely I can share that exercise. It was really brilliant.
I'd love that, Sim. Thank you. Yeah, that would be brilliant. And we can then share that here from the School of Life deck. So yeah, it sounds like it was. I was going to ask like what was the impact on the team, but it sounds like it actually became quite core to their identity. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Oh, Lorenzo was just asking a question on that one, Sim. Did they contribute all to one drawing, or did each have their own?
Yes. So they all did it to one drawing. So they took a lot of collaboration between them, like what do we want to start off with? And then they start off with cat dog, which I just found really strange because half of them like cats, half of them like dogs. So that's where that kind of theory comes from. And then they started adding to it. And where do you think this could go? Where could this go? What about this? And they wrote things in their language as well for what the squad was called, but in their language because they were based in India, in Poland, etc. So it was really, really nice. So yeah, it's definitely a collaborative exercise that needs everybody to engage. But yeah, it was really good fun.
Brilliant. Yeah. And so a brilliant example of how either an Agile coach there or a Scrum Master, somebody in a kind of team facilitating or team coaching role can use that as a really kind of powerful tool. So yeah, thank you so much for that, sharing that example.
I was just going to add, Gemma, somebody's asking if it was contributed. This was kind of done on mural, so it was quite using the icons there rather than actually drawing it by hand and showing the picture. It was all done using the tool.
Yeah, brilliant. And I love the fact that this is something that you can either use digitally or you can use in sort of like in the physical space. So yeah, that is also something to kind of bear in mind when you're looking at the courses. I do run 2 different courses. One is a visual course, which looks at how to kind of use the digital tools to facilitate online, but do that visually, and how to kind of use those in the digital space for coaching, but also just how to kind of create images so that you can kind of convey your messages, and again using digital tools, so like iPads and Apple Pencil, for example. Whereas the other one is much more in the physical world. So it's based off of flip charts, big paper, big pens, and really kind of thinking about how you're kind of working your room, setting up your room, and to create like amazing collaborative spaces that get everybody engaged and everybody clear and on the same page. So yeah, just so you know, that link is just down there. So that's Visual Fit Thinking for Coaches, and you get 15% off with the code Visual15. I've also put further reading. So a lot of the information that I've shared today has been from the reading that I've done over the years. So amazing books like Observe, Collect, Draw, Secret Language of Maps, The Doodle Revolution by Sunny Brown, and Visual Thinking and Visual Doing by William Brand. So I think that is everything from me, unless there are any questions. I've got a couple of minutes. Brilliant. In which case, yeah, I think Jude has just dropped the link in the chat. I really hope you had a fantastic session today. If anybody does want to kind of catch up and ask me questions separately, you can contact me on LinkedIn. And if you needed to kind of set up a chat, then I can do that as well. Okay, but yeah, thank you very much everybody for your time today. You have been amazing visual thinkers, and it has been an absolute pleasure to work with you.